What's up, folks? Thanks for stopping by. Jorge Nito here. Welcome back. Today, I want to show you a few things, a few techniques that I learned in doing the table Faro. And so, anybody who's a card magician, cardist, knows what a Faro shuffle is. It looks like this, and it's usually done in the hands traditionally. It's a way of just taking two packets of cards, placing them together, and then pushing them in such a way to where the cards actually weave themselves together. So obviously an in the hands Faro shuffle would be a prerequisite for learning to do the table Faro. And by the way, I'm going to show you two ways to do two different versions of the table Faro, and two totally different. They look completely different. Anyway, so knowing how to do the Faro in the hands is going to benefit you, obviously. I'll give you a quick rundown of a couple things that's important. The cut of the cards is going to be important when you're doing a Faro. This is obvious to most people, but for those who don't know, there are two ways that a company, USPCC or Cardamundi, they cut cards. And so whenever the cards, they come out in sheets, and before they're cut, right, whenever they're cut, they'll either come out like this, and the blades will come down from back to front. So that is, the blade will come down on them like this, and then they'll be cut. Or the sheets will come out with the faces facing up, and then the blade will come down and cut like that. So, most decks today are modern cut decks. What that means is they're cut from back to front. But traditional cut cards are cut from face to back. What that means is any modern cut deck is going to have the smooth side is going to be from back to front. So that means it's going to be easier to Faro from back to front. Now these cards I've had for quite a while. I'm sorry about the glare on that, guys. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be easier to Faro from back to front. Now a traditional cut, like I said, they actually take the sheets and they manually flip them over. Let me see if I can get the glare off of this just a little bit. I apologize for that. And so that way, you're going to be able to Faro the cards from face to back with ease. Now, like I said, with this deck, this is the Drifters from Dan and Dave. This is a really thin deck, and so you could Faro either direction, but you'll notice that with most decks, it's going to be difficult to Faro it the opposite way, and you can actually damage your cards by trying to get them to weave in the wrong way. You'll scuff up the corners, and you'll tear them up. So anyway, table Faro. Real quick, how do you tell if you have a traditionally cut deck of cards, or how do you tell if you have a modern cut deck? It's very simple. You just take your deck of cards and just run your finger across the edge of them. I know that it's smooth if I go this way. That means it's traditional cut. If I was to rub this way, it's rougher. It's more rough. If I do this way, it feels like I'm going against the grain. But if I go this way, it's very smooth, and you'll be able to tell the difference as soon as you get a deck of cards in your hands and just try it out. You know, you can also go online and just kind of Google or go on these different magic forums and, you know, kind of look up what traditional cut decks exist out there as opposed to modern cut decks. These are the Cherry Casinos. They are traditionally cut. Okay, so this is what a table Faro looks like. Just like that. You're probably used to seeing people shuffle cards like this, on the table, maybe like that. And so what the table Faro does is it keeps the deck on the surface at all times. At least this version, the version I'm going to show you next, is actually more in the hands, but still considered a table Faro in my eyes. But anyway, this is the traditional one. And what you want to do is sort of, you're mainly using your thumb and middle finger, and you're just kind of squaring them up, and you're kind of using your ring finger to kind of square them up on all sides, right? Like that. Then you got the thumbs on the back. You want to make sure they're nice and tight. I use my right thumb to riffle up the back till I got about what I think is half. That's actually not half, but it doesn't matter if you get exactly half or not. But you want these two packets to be relatively, tight. So I always kind of butt them together, make sure they're kind of, nice and tight. And you want to line them up, and you just kind of want to place your ring finger on the backs of the cards, and you just want to rise them up. You want to just rise both packets up in the air, while keeping this this side of the deck down. So you're actually just rising them up like that, not like this. So you're rising them up, and you're keeping pressure against the decks. You rise them up like that, and what you're doing is applying pressure on one of these corners, and you're just kind of wiggling them ever so slightly. Now I did it a little bit slower so you could see, but that's how it's done. So you ruffle up, you lift up, and as soon as you lift up, you start applying a downward pressure, and you could do this with your middle fingers just by kind of working your middle fingers inward, and it's going to cause the edges, the corners of the card to just start weaving one by one together to where you're left with a deck that is perfectly interwoven. Now it's at this point where you can square them up like that, or what I like to do is a table bridge. Now what a bridge is this right here. So once you have achieved the weaving, the actual Faro, you're going to grab right here is the pressure point, and you're going to lift up. You're going to lift up like this, and you're going to push, and you're using your pinky to anchor as sort of an anchor point, so that this packet doesn't move or slide over this way. So you're lifting up with this hand, and you're kind of pushing forward with this hand, and it's just like this. It's not very clean, but weave. You kind of pick up with thumb and middle finger with the pinky braced against the back of the cards back here, and you're just picking up like that. That's all you're doing. This hand is coming over and causing the cards to bow, and once you do that, they're going to start releasing as you kind of release a little bit of pressure from the middle finger, just like that. That's as easy as I can probably explain it. There are some more tutorials online I would encourage you to check out. But like I said, once you're in this position, you're using your thumb and middle finger to pick up, and you're using this hand to kind of scoop, or just to kind of push this way, with your pinky at the back bracing. And I use my middle finger and ring finger and to kind of push that way, and I use my forefinger and thumb just to kind of, they don't do much but other than to just kind of keep the cards in place, just like that. Then you could square up. Very simple. This is the other table Faro that I'm talking about. Let me bow these cards, and it's nice to have, if you're going to do it the other way, to kind of have them bowed a little bit, like so. So you might hit it, do one of those, but you start doing the same thing. When you bring the two packets together, what you're doing is you're taking and lifting up like this. Let me just show you what it looks like first. Let me do it a couple times so you know what it looks like. Just like that. The other one is on the table, you know. This one gets lifted up in the air ever so slightly. And this is for the modern decks. This is important to say. Remember, for the traditional cut, we done the traditional table Faro. For the modern cut decks, unless you have a deck like these that you can do either which way, if you have a modern cut deck, most of them you're going to want to do this way because it's going to be difficult to get them to Faro the other way. But anyway, same first steps as the other Faro. Break off top pack, bring them together, butt them together, and once they're butted together, you're going to apply pressure against the two packets, and you're just going to lift up ever so slightly, but you're going to apply pressure on these two corners right here. So it's kind of like applying pressure on the outward corners, and that's going to help them weave. Got your two packets. You begin to lift up, applying pressure upwards and outwards. You can kind of work them back and forth, or rock them back and forth, maybe I should say. And once you've achieved that, it's up to you how you want to square up the deck. Like I said, I like to do the table bridge. That was really choppy. Sorry about that. Or you could just square them up like that. But anyway, guys, I will tell you that I learned this move kind of just playing around with it on my own after viewing Daniel Madison probably about maybe a year and a half ago, because I noticed he was always shuffling cards on the table like this, and I'm like, I had never seen that before, and I'm like, how is he doing that? How is he taking these packets and just whoosh, and then they're just, they're shuffled? And so it's a nice little move. It's really cool. And if you're doing a lot of table work, you're going to want to know these moves. So, guys, thanks for stopping by. And if I could give one more tip on this second Faro shuffle, you want to use the ring fingers of both hands on the backs of the cards, and that's going to keep them from going all crazy and coming out and stuff like that. So whenever you're lifting up and applying pressure upwards and outwards, you got the two ring fingers braced against the backs to keep the cards from going anywhere. That's all I got today, guys. That's not really a slight or a trick, but it is a move that's, I think, essential to table work. It's not really essential, but it's just kind of nice to know. So, thanks again. God bless.